All right. We are live with another episode of Marketing Without Rules, and I am pumped and excited to have Clifton on the podcast today. How are you doing, man?
Hey, man, like I said off air, somewhere between exceptional and fantastic.
It's a good place to be. It's a good place to be. And we've chatted before on my previous podcast, and I've been following you for some time now. I think since 2020 or so is when we first connected. You've been all over the map, doing all kinds of things, from living on a boat to, packing up. I think I've seen you pack up multiple times and move the family around the country. So give people a little bit of a background on yourself and how that relates to what we're going to talk to today a lot about, and that's marketing and helping contractors stand out and market without rules. But give people a bit of background to give some credibility to your story.
Sure. Like you said, Lewis, we've known each other, for a few years now. I'm excited for this podcast. I was asking you before we went live, what was the premise behind the Marketing Without Rules podcast. And I think what you're doing here is so beneficial. But really, and I don't want to hijack the conversation with my backstory because, it's important because it led me to this moment, right? But the backstory actually doesn't define me. It's the lessons learned along the way that, have created the man that you hear. And if you're watching this, see today. But born in South Carolina, grew up in a small family there with my grandparents and my mom, and kind of a middle class upbringing. On some farm equipment and stuff like that. Very small town in South Carolina, but did all the things that a lot of kids do. Played sports, did all that kind of stuff. But I'm an only child, and so I was always striving for attention. And the best way that I could get attention, which I think is remarkable that I start with attention because we will eventually get to attention.
Right back to attention.
Right. Yeah. But the way I got attention was to stand out and did things differently. I believe that if you want different results, you got to do different things. I just heard a quote recently, and it's so true. It's winning comes to those that are different. Unfortunately, people don't like different.
People are terrified of being different. I've been thinking about that a lot lately.
They are. I coach youth sports. And one of the first things that we talk about when we're starting a season is, guys, we are going to be different. We're going to show up different. We're going to practice different. We're going to play different. We're going to compete different. And guess what inevitably will happen? We will get different results. And people want to be on this team because we are different, right? So let's rewind it back to being different as a kid. And so that was how I was always striving for attention. I would just be different. Maybe it was goofy behavior. Maybe it was, things I said, things I did, but it was ways to stand out, and it garnered attention. That's what filled my cup. It's really what helped me feel valued.
Yeah.
Now, as I graduated high school and went into college, being different didn't necessarily lead to great decisions. And we've talked before, but, and again, not to hijack the podcast, but over a period of years, just really poor decision-making, being different, seeking attention, it led to multiple arrests and things like that. And by all accounts, truthfully, you and I shouldn't be talking here today. And so that's why I'm just eternally grateful for God really just bringing me to this moment and blessing me with the opportunity and the life experiences, both in business and life and entrepreneurship and leadership and all of that. But I'm really grateful that He's provided me an opportunity to go out and help others. And that's why we're here today.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. So you made those decisions, then you actually started it was a cleaning business first and then a contracting business, right?
That is correct. Yeah. So my first legal business was back in 2008. That was at the kind of the height or near the end of the Great Recession. The real estate market, was just on fire in a bad way. Yeah. And I worked in the mortgage business, and that company went out of business. And I was with a relatively new relationship at the time. We had just moved from Florida, and here I am. And I have no job. I'm in a new city, and, been with this woman who trusted me to move her to North Carolina. And she kind of looked at me and was like, what now? And I didn't have an answer. But to answer your question, I'm like, okay, what are the things that people hate to do? And it was cook and clean. Well, I grew up with my grandparents. I learned how to cook Southern food. And, but I wasn't going to be able to go out and just start knocking on doors and be like, hey, do you want me to cook you dinner?
Yeah.
But so we launched our cleaning business, literally from an apartment community clubhouse. This was back, I don't know how the age of your listeners, but this is going to date me some. I created these flyers on a computer in the community center, and then I faxed them. Yeah, fax machine to all these businesses. I got my first commercial customer because the lady called me to let me know, one, that I'd faxed her this thing and it was all black and white and it took all the ink out of her fax machine.
So she was a little bit upset about that.
But she said, but I could get your number off of it. And so I need somebody to come clean my hair salon. And so that was just kind of the beginning of it. But yes.
So wait, like, this is a without rules moment here. Yeah. So did you go like scrape fax numbers, basically, like go through the phone book and find them?
Dude, it's so crazy. I drove downtown Raleigh and literally parked my car and would walk around and would look at businesses, find out their names, and then go figure out phone numbers, fax numbers, email addresses, all of that. It was true guerrilla style.
Yeah. That's wild. That's cool. That's a cool moment. I don't think we chatted about that last time. That was my
first commercial account. And then, man, we grew that business, and but let's face it, dude. Like, I was paying myself. I think I was paying myself at the time maybe $10 an hour. I was making like $200 a week, and I wasn't in love with cleaning toilets. But here's, I think, is one of the really cool things. I was just reflecting on this moment recently because my kids are starting to get to an age where they're like super intrigued, like, of dad's backstory. They hear me on coaching calls all day long, and when they're not in school, and they're always intrigued, and they ask me questions. How do you know all this stuff and this? And you're not born with wisdom.
You just fell down a lot and happened to get up one more time, right?
Yes, exactly. You're not born with wisdom. Wisdom is gained through experience over time. And so, I was reflecting on this moment, and we grew that business to like $350,000 cleaning toilets.
That's wild. The key is to jack up someone's fax machine. I think that's the ultimate key here.
That's the teaching moment, the takeaway in this podcast. Go find a fax machine and waste someone's ink. Yes.
Yeah. They will call you.
Guaranteed. They will call you. Correct. But so I started that first cleaning business. We grew that business. I actually wasn't in love with cleaning toilets. There was no why. There was no mission behind that business other than, hey, I got to make money.
Keep the lights on. Yeah.
I got to keep the lights on. Yeah. And then we, grew that business, hired leaders, hired people, turned that business over to my now wife. And I started my construction company in 2010 on, business plan on the size of a Post-it note with another gentleman, high school best friend. And that story is really, really interesting as well. I'll share some brief details on that. We sat down at a brewery, three of us. And I had this great business plan on this Post-it note. And I said, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get a website for this. It was like $100 from, I don't know, maybe Yahoo at the time or GoDaddy or something. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to need this, this, and this. It was basically our blueprint. And I can recall it just so vividly. I looked at my one buddy who was a construction manager for a production builder at the time. And he looked at me and he's like, dude, you were crazy as shit.
Just out of your mind.
You're out of your mind. And I'm like, cool, dude, look, go get another beer. I turned to my other buddy and I'm like, hey man, he's out. So instead of getting $1,500 from everybody, like, dude, I just need $1,750 from you. I'm going to put in $1,750 and here we're going to launch this construction company. And I think there's a takeaway here, because that was one of the first times, Lewis, and hopefully your listeners can really, really grasp this. because there's entrepreneurs going to be listening to this podcast. It was the first time someone had said to me, "You're crazy." Essentially, that'll never work.
Yeah.
I didn't know it in the moment. It bruised my ego in the moment. But looking back and thinking about my 20-year entrepreneur journey, that meant I was onto something.
Mm.
The magnitude of an idea, I believe, is measured by the level of resistance that comes up against it.
And how
so
out there it
hopefully
is.
your listeners can really latch onto that, because there's going to be times where maybe they take an idea from this podcast and they go tell their business partner or their friend or whomever, colleague, they say, "We're going to go implement that." And somebody's going to say, "That's crazy."
Mm. And that's a litmus test right there.
Bingo. Exactly. So we started that construction company on that Post-it note idea. And, again, in an established market at the end of the Great Recession, businesses were going out of business. People were like, "You're starting a construction company? Again, what the hell is wrong with you?"
Yeah.
I'm like, cool. Just watch me. Watch what happens here. I knew nothing about construction, Lewis. Like, I am not your... I guess if there's a prototypical, you think about this, a person's good at their trade. They maybe work for someone. They get pissed off at that owner because he's a terrible leader. Culture's bad. And they're like, "You know what? I can do it better than him and make more money. So I'm going to go start my own company." That's how a lot of construction companies start out.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about construction. Can't read a tape measure. Just the first estimate I went on, Lewis, it took me about 12 hours to measure the house. Because think about this. I came from a marketing background, a sales background. I didn't know what fascia and soffit and freeze and dental molding. I didn't know what any of that shit was. But anyway, the point of that is I didn't have a marketing budget either.
You just dove in.
I just dove in. And I got one person to give me a shot. That one person led to another person. And that's where we're going to bring this home here in a moment. Led to another person, continued to grow because we focused on client experience, man.
Yeah. Let's dive into that. Client experience is what took your construction business to where it went. And now you have a whole business called Building Raving Fans. And that's what I really want people to get out of this. And thanks for bringing us on that journey. I think I love the fact story. I think that's going to go down as one of the moments here of a without rules moment. But you run through the contracting business. You now do this as a business, helping people build raving fans. Let's dive into that. What is a raving fan and why are they important? It sounds like a silly thing to ask, but I think people don't spend enough time paying attention to that.
Absolutely. And some of the things we talk about here today, Lewis, are going to be simple. And I think one of the biggest problems entrepreneurs have is when they come up on a simple idea, they tell themselves, we tell ourselves these stories, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, that's too simple. That'll never work." Okay. Simple scales. We have results to prove it. But a raving fan is a person that is so obsessive about you, your company, your culture, your people, your processes. Notice I said all of that first. Your products or services. That's near the end. They are so obsessive about those things that they can't wait to go share their experience with their friends, their family, their neighbors, their coworkers, and anybody that'll listen. I want you to think about this. Most people that are listening to this podcast understand sporting events. Yep. They understand that teams have fans. And if you think for a moment, I'm a Clemson Tiger fan, big college football guy. And so when you are at Death Valley Memorial Stadium and excitement is rising and the team is at the top of the hill, getting ready to run down the hill and the cannon goes off, 90,000 people scream in excitement. Those are raving fans.
They're crazy about the game. Yeah.
They're crazy about the game. And that translates to all sports, hockey, football, basketball, baseball, whatever. Here's the deal. Small businesses can also establish that same level of excitement, build those raving fans, and create really brand ambassadors and let them go do all the selling for you. So that's what building raving fans is. It's a concept behind how can we take the strategies and the processes that we were using in our own business. This is not theory. This is practical. How can we go take those things and now offer it to other small businesses and let them get the results that we were getting? We grew our business to over 62% on average repeat and referral business. We started the first like 5 years in business. We had 3 Google reviews and we went to, 90 in just like a year and a half after that.
That's fast given the size of the typical size of a construction job too.
Yeah.
Like you don't have the same number of clients as a cleaning company or junk
Correct.
removal or plumbing
Yeah.
company. You're working on
Absolutely.
bigger stuff.
Yeah.
That's big.
Yeah.
Let's
But it was
dive
all
in.
about the experience.
How does it work? How does someone create
So
that
what we've done is, so before we talk about sort of the intricacies, let's really unpack a term that I believe most people can wrap their minds around. That's ROI.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I want to talk about something briefly, ROI compared to ROR, right? ROI, return on investment. Most people can wrap their minds around that, right? We put $1 in, we get $2 out. It's really a transactional metric.
Yeah.
What I think is lost is because it's not really talked about, and most people don't understand it, is ROR. That's return on relationship.
Mm-hmm.
We're referring to the relational equity that we establish with our clients.
Yeah.
Right? And so ROI is easily proven right away. ROR takes time. And the reason why I think that's important is because you do an amazing job doing SEO, search engine optimization.
Yeah.
Does that get you results overnight?
Doesn't. It's like the gym.
Yes, exactly. And so ROR is the same thing. It's the consistency that's required, consistently pouring into those relationships that over time build that relational equity that help you build that winning brand so that you don't have to be so dependent on paid ads. Let's be honest. I know you guys do that, and I believe in paid ads. Attention is getting expensive.
It's getting very expensive.
Right. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Google ads are expensive. Facebook ads are expensive. Attention is expensive. And there's not a lot of great companies. You own a great company. You do great work. But with little barriers to entry, let's face it, man, like digital marketing agencies pop up all over the place.
It's a dime a dozen.
Yeah. And so we're trying to help educate people on, hey, let's talk about return on relationship. ROI is important, but ROR is equally, if not greater, of importance.
So here's a question, Clifton,
Yeah.
And you may get to this as we go, but I'd love if there was some numbers to quantify this that we can kind of circle back with.
Yeah.
And I believe you do have some great case studies on this, but I mean your business is one there with a 62% word of mouth there. But let's dive into it here, and then let's circle back with some numbers so that there's just undeniable proof that this does
absolutely work. So how it works. So I don't know if your listeners, again, I'm a little bit older, so I think about, I make references to things that were like in the 80s and maybe in the 90s. But if you remember the Ronco oven, that was like the very first tabletop rotisserie oven. Now, Emerald has got one that's super fancy now, but think about this. I want you to just visualize having a countertop oven.
Mm-hmm.
And you would put a turkey in it, a chicken, whatever, and you would put it in, and their tagline was set it and forget it.
Forget it. Yeah.
Right? So we have the same mindset. Once you connect with our team and we understand your client experience, we walk you through a journey. So we want to understand how you're handling people on the inbound, on the intake. Like when a lead comes in, how are you scheduling appointments? How are you showing up for your sales appointments? How are you closing deals? How are you following up? How are you keeping people informed? So we walk through this journey. And once we understand your journey, we can make recommendations how to fill gaps, how to improve the experience, leveraging handwritten thank you cards, surprise and delight gifts, long-term email nurture sequences, even some AI technology, all of those things. And once we agree that this is what you want to do, it's literally set it and forget it.
And you guys take care of the rest.
Yeah, we take care of the rest. And so here's the thing. The amount of time that it takes for somebody to go out and buy a card, just as an example, baseline, to go buy a greeting card, to then write the message, to then get the stamp, to then drop it in the mailbox. It's crazy.
Like an hour at least.
Yes, exactly. Have you bought a greeting card lately?
It's brutal.
Bought a greeting card a couple weeks ago and it was like $7.99.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit. But the point of that is we actually save people time. We're saving people time because that hour minimum could be used on a high value activity, sales follow-up, leadership development, whatever. So we really set it and forget it. Then, depending on what you determine you want to do with us, how you want to stand out and create those memorable experiences. We get the data from typically your CRM. And if you don't have a CRM, that's for another podcast episode. But that's customer relationship management, your database.
You should have one.
Yes. That's the nucleus of your company. But listen, businesses don't always start out with a CRM. And if not, hey, they can fill out a Google sheet and we can put some automation to handle all of that. And it really is peace of mind that we deliver. But beyond that, we talk about automating happiness. If you go back to where we started this, how are you doing? Somewhere between exceptional and fantastic. Why? Because I feel good. I have a great spirit inside. It's now my obligation and my responsibility. Now I have a company that does this to go out and do that. Spread that happiness, spread that gratitude on behalf of other small business owners for really pennies on the dollar, man.
Yeah.
And the impact that what we're doing is having in the lives of the people that receive the gifts and the thank you cards and all of that. Dude, it's just extraordinary, some of the stories that I've heard.
Let's dive into some of those stories.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's going to help people relate to the concept as a whole, but also to what you guys do.
Yeah.
I know I've seen Luan's stuff come up, but pick multiple stories. Let's dive into that. I think people relate well to stories.
Absolutely. So, I talked earlier about my own experience. And we got our marketing and advertising budget less than 1%, and we generated 60 to 62% of our business on repeat and referrals.
That's amazing.
Because we made people feel good.
So to tie it back into what you were saying before, it's an investment, right? And that return on relationship, that ROR that you were talking about, you're not going to see it immediately, but when you do start seeing it, when it starts to kick in, the cost percentage of your business is so low. 1% is ridiculous. Like 10% is pretty average for a lot of businesses. Some starting out do 20. But 5 to 10% is very, very common for most businesses to keep things rocking and rolling. Yeah. So 1% is very low, just to give context for the listeners.
Yeah, you're exactly right. But let's talk about, Luan as an example. But before I talk about Luan, I want to just highlight, I can't highlight the point enough about making people feel good. Because it's actually one of the questions that I ask a business owner, and I really dive to the heart of the person. I can't convince a person to have a heart of service. to be grateful.
No.
If you don't inherently possess that, we can't work together. And that's okay. I am not a transactional person, right? There's a lot, let's face it, there's a lot of business owners that only care about bringing in the lead, doing the deal, doing the next one, chasing the next opportunity, rinse and repeat. That's not me, right? Think about at a base level, humans. We all have our own unique fingerprint, our own unique DNA to a degree, right?
Yeah.
But there's one thing that every single person, you, me, my wife, everybody, we share. We share this common need. That's the feel appreciated. And so my company, Building Raving Fans, meets that need. And for me, man, that's so impactful. That's like a world mission, right? So now we'll transition the conversation into like Luan, some results. Luan, who's the founder, visionary, and the owner of Deck Bros in Omaha, Nebraska. I didn't have to convince him of the benefit of what we were doing. He understood the importance of relationships. Now, he also started a business about 4 years, going on 4 years now. And to your point, what you just said, sometimes when you're starting, he was investing 15, 18, 20%. We came on board with him. We're going on in 25 will be, I think, third year.
Very cool.
He's about to be an 8-figure business owner, and he is down to like 2.5%, 3% marketing cost.
That's crazy.
Yes.
Wow.
And so think about that. I mean, an 8-figure decking company that's investing. I mean, he's rewarding, I don't know, 500 customers, right? And people are like, wow, that sounds crazy. Think about what's happening. Every time our gifts go out, this is what's so cool. Because I get these text messages and I get these emails and I get these videos and I get tagged on Facebook and stuff like that. But our gifts go out quarterly. They're truly a surprise and delight factor. I got a couple here I'll show you. But they're truly surprise and delight. And they go out, and when they hit the mailboxes, inherently what happens is this. We see reviews spike for those businesses because we have things inserted inside of it to drive people to leave those reviews. Again, we got the law of reciprocity. It just gets triggered. We then see referrals increase. We then see, oh, you know what? I was actually thinking about that project you talked to me about 6 months ago. Now I'm ready to move on that. So now we're seeing repeat business as well. So we started with ROI. We talked about ROR. Now we've just married the two. And so that's what we're doing. So Luan has had tremendous success. I have other client that was an engineer. Same thing, led to some really big contracts. Because again, people just want to feel appreciated. They're spending a lot of money in most cases with people.
Yeah. So can you break it down? So Luan comes to you. He says, I'm ready to go. You go through your onboarding with him to make sure that you truly encapsulate his, persona when you're sending these gifts out. And then let's say he does a few jobs and they go into your pipeline to take care of without, spilling all your secret sauce. I mean, spill as much as you want. What happens to that person? And what are you guys doing for Luan in this situation? Just so we can get real granular for people.
Yeah. So I won't give away all his secrets because then his competition may be listening to this podcast. And so let's say that in this example, an inbound opportunity comes in and they schedule an appointment and that person decides to buy. So job sold.
Yep.
So inside that CRM, that team is denoting that opportunity is now a job sold. Our software grabs that information from their software, brings it over to us. And like in this case, in about 7 to 10 days, that customer is getting a handwritten thank you card from Deck Bros.
That's awesome. That
says, thank you. Thank you for placing your faith and trust in us. Yes.
Question. Sorry to interrupt. Are you actually handwriting them or are you using like handwriting robots?
Yeah. So we've invested in probably the greatest technology in the market, but an actual robot.
That's so cool.
And a robot is holding a blue big pen. And what's happening is a lot of these cards, there's a lot of competition out there, and that's cool. I love it. But if I continue to elevate my game, they're still going to be 2 or 3 steps.
Keep it up.
Yeah. But the robots are so sophisticated. They hold this pen and they move the pen and they rotate it to mimic the nuances of human handwriting. Like if you looked closely on this, there's some little mistakes. There's some spacing.
Yeah, I see a little section that's darker on it. That's awesome.
Yes, right over here.
Yeah.
And so, but that arrives in that customer's mailbox. They open it up. The message is basically to the point where, hey, Sally, thank you so much for placing your faith and trust in us. Our commitment to delivering an exceptional customer experience does not stop here. We just wanted to say thank you and welcome to the family. So now think about what we've done with Sally there. Sally has met with the Deck Bros team. They've made a purchase decision. What happens, do you think, Lewis, when that sales rep leaves that house? What happens to Sally in her mind?
I mean, there's a number of things that could happen. But she's like, okay, I've just decided this is a pretty big chunk of money. Like, did I make the right decision? That's probably the biggest thing in her mind.
Absolutely. It's that buyer's remorse. Am I going to be a statistic? I just gave him a $15,000 deposit. Are they going to show up? He seemed like a nice guy. All these stories would tell, right? So now when Sally gets this, I knew we made the right decision.
Yeah.
I knew we made the right decision. And in fact, what we've seen is before Sally's deck has even been built, before a permit's even been pulled, Sally's got this. Now Sally's talking to her neighbor, talking to her colleagues. Can you believe what these guys have done? And so now that's sort of a one touch point. Now the team goes out, they build the deck, everything's great. We go to close out that deck. And we again, we've got word tracks, but we help educate on like the importance of reviews and all that kind of stuff. Now we present Sally at the closeout, like the project manager, whoever's walking it out, we give them one of this tap to review or scan to review cards. We collect the 5-star review immediately. Then that job sold status comes over. Now Sally gets another one of these with different messaging, thanking them again for the project. We're going to set the stage for what's to come. Then the next quarter rolls around. Now Sally's going to start getting gifts from us or from Luan in this case. Like here's an example of some gifts that showed up. These are just leather embossed coasters.
Yeah.
And I think it's important. And so that happens on autopilot. Oh, by the way, how do we stay top of mind with Sally in this example? Continuously. Oh, by the way, we send monthly digital newsletters. We send email campaigns. We send her VIP exclusive offers to come back to us, to refer us. And so we're just consistently top of mind.
Yeah.
Here's
for life now.
Bingo. Glad you said that. That's kind of like our tagline. We create customers for life.
Yeah.
But 2 things real quick. Here's what I do know. It's not our customers or your customers or the listener's customers' job to remember you. It's your job to make sure they can't forget you. The marketplace is noisy. People are fighting for attention, right? But here's the truth of the matter. Your competition can duplicate and replicate your ad campaigns and even your website. They don't know what I'm sending directly to Sally's mailbox.
Yeah.
They don't know that emotional connection, relational equity that I'm creating with Sally.
I'm glad you said that before, and I want to highlight it. It is not the job of our customers to remember us. It is not, and it never will be, and they're not going to do that. Why should they care? They don't care about your business the way that you do. I've seen this. I hired a plumber to replace a toilet, And then we needed someone the next year, and I couldn't remember who we used. And I went on and Googled it and ended up finding the same one. But it's not our job. And what would be cool for you to do, it would suck because you know the wonderful things that come from doing it the way you're doing it. But if you could do like a split test over like a 2 or 3 year period of like, okay, we have 20 people that we run through this process and 20 people that we do the job and forget them. And I bet you'd see some crazy stats on the money that came in from, and maybe you've done this, maybe you've done tests like that, but like the money that comes in from someone who you stay top of mind with because you're helping them and you're creating that emotional bond and connection with them, versus most people just, they take their money, do the job. They might do an amazing job, and then they just, done and dusted on the way, hopefully get a review, and then they're off to the next one.
And they're off to the next one. You're exactly right. And we have plans to start doing some of those,
That'd be cool to see.
that testing. But what I can share with you is, businesses, think about how many times you service someone, how many times somebody buys from you, and how can we increase that CLTV, customer lifetime value, right? Yeah. But here's one of the objections I get, and I think it's important, is, so for example, like a roofing contractor may say, well, Clifton, I only do roofs. They're only going to buy one roof from me over 15 years. That's possible. Yeah. But again, it goes back to the heart of service. Do you want to reward that person for making the investment with you? Oh, and by the way, when she or he receives that gift, and now this gift actually sits around because it sits around. So now every time they see that, they're reminded of you. Now they have a dinner party and somebody, oh, what is that? So now they're being a brand advocate for you. And so that's one of the things that I hear often is, oh, well, I only do one job for them. So I have to, educate those folks. But two quick things, Lewis, I think is important here, because there are people that are investing in what we've talked about here, right? There are people that are giving gifts. I want to caution the audience to not send gifts or give gifts with their logos.
And that was going to be my next question. I'm so glad you're hitting this.
And here's what it does. It's self-promotional. It diminishes the gift completely. And let's face it, just like your customers don't care about your business as much as you do, they could give a shit less about your logo. Yeah. They're not emotionally attached to it. You know what they're attached to? How they're made to feel, the experience that your company delivered. And so, but I see this mistake happening. In fact, I was on a podcast and I was talking about this, and a guy reached out to me, and on the discovery call, he goes, man, I listened to your podcast and I was like, oh shit, I just spent $2,000 on new merch.
Brutal.
Right? And I'm like, well, man, we can work on that. But secondly, I think it's important, and we can take the conversation where you want to on the logo stuff. But secondly, I want you to avoid, if you can, giving people perishable things. All right. Here's why. Now, again, you got the heart of service. You gave them a gift. That's awesome. Perfect. You got some points for that. But how about if the recipient of that is actually allergic to that? Or cookies or those brownies, right? Now they're like, oh, yes, this is great. I'm opening this up, and this is like a gourmet fudge brownie. But if I'm allergic to this, I'm not even going to eat this. I then run the risk, just because I have attention to detail as my core value, cookie tree might not. This might be stale. That's now a reflection of the person who gave it. But beyond all of that, and I'm not here to knock any of this, I think this is great. People are at least doing something. But when I take these brownies out of this box and I eat those brownies, what do I have?
You're left with an empty box.
I'm left with an empty box. And just as quick as Mrs. Sally forgot you and you forgot your plumber, as soon as you eat those brownies and you're like, oh man, that was good. 5 minutes later, you forgot who gave you those. And so your gifts really need to have staying power. we've seen our gifts actually show up in the hands of other people than the intended recipient. You want to talk about impact,
That's cool.
man.
That's cool.
That's what's really cool. So
I don't know if you know this, but we send out brownies when clients jump in, and so I love that you didn't know that. If you didn't,
I did.
because we send it out, and I'm thinking, okay, interesting. He's got a really good point, because people love the brownies,
Yeah.
but then it's gone, and so my mind's turning. I'll be messaging you after for some
Yeah.
ideas, but my mind's turning and thinking about how can we make it a memorable experience that they can hold on to. I think Jim Rulin talks about that, and I hadn't really made the connection. I had gotten some brownies from someone, and I was like, "That's incredible," and so we had started doing that.
Yeah. Here's
But
the
I
thing,
think that
Lewis.
there's more staying power that could come from
Yes,
it.
you're doing something.
Yeah.
And you're doing it for the right reason, right? Because you love to serve. You want to see
And then
your
there's
people
some
grow.
levers that we can pull, perhaps that could go further. I love it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was a Lewis step into the student role here. Very cool. But no, I did want to talk about logos, because everybody thinks, hey, I'm going to get a branded hat and I'm going to send it to someone. Unless you're Supreme or some of these other brand name things,
Lifestyle brand.
a lifestyle brand. Like, even still, as I was thinking about chatting through this with you, even if someone's wearing Louis Vuitton or Gucci or something, that's a status symbol for them. They're not really repping the brand. They're repping it because it gives them more status. And so if you can give them like those coasters, I imagine I think it said JC on them. That's probably the initials. Someone's initials, right? And so when they've got the new deck from Luan or whatever, they're going to sit out there and they're going to sip a cold one with their friends and use the coasters. And that's something that's around forever. And so, I love that you touched on the logo thing. I love that you touched on the brownies. I'm still like in a thought process here about that. So that's really cool.
Yeah. Listen, I've done all of these things. And I'm like, oh man, I would give people, think about this, Lewis. You go out and spend $30 on a Yeti mug. You put a logo etched on it. Now you're at 40. You get it delivered. Now you're at 45, right? Now that sits in someone's cabinet.
Yeah. You went above and beyond, but really you just wasted a bunch of money there, to be honest.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, I'm not here to poo-poo on anybody's ideas and any of that stuff. I'm simply here to shed light on things that we may not be thinking about.
Yeah. But right? That's exactly why I love that came up. Very cool.
Yeah.
What is something that while I'm still on a thought process here, I gotta pull myself out and get back into the host role here. But what are some things that we didn't talk about that someone should be thinking about, or like a first step that someone can take? They've not done any of this. They have that giver mentality, but they're just like, I have no idea where to start. Where can someone start?
Yeah. So let's say you don't want to like become a Building Raving Fans client. That's cool. But you could go right now and write your top tier clients a thank you note. Simply just letting them know you appreciate them. Let them know you were thinking about them. You could do that right now, right? You could also send those same people a text message. Now, I will tell you that a handwritten note carries tremendous power and impact, because the person who receives it understands what it takes to get that done. But at a baseline, you could send a text message. I send unexpected text messages and videos to people every single day. Hey man, I just wanted to let you know I appreciate you. Oh, and by the way, I send my clients all of this stuff as well. So I'm a practitioner of what we're selling. But so you could do some of these low cost options on your own.
One thing I want to hit there, your videos and texts that you send out to people, or your handwritten cards, that's random to the receiver, but it's sure as heck probably not random on your side. Is that correct?
No, definitely not. I'm very intentional about, and again, it's intentional service. It's not, hey man, buy for me. I will
Sure.
never
You have
sell.
this thing that you've decided you're going to do because of the go-giver mentality, and you said at some point, "Hey, I'm going to systematize this so I make sure that people get these touch points."
Correct. And here's the other thing. I'm also very observant. So I'm seeing how people are interacting. I'm seeing if they're celebrating a win on social media or something like that. And I'll take that. And hey, man, I saw this is happening right now. I just want to say congratulations. Hey, man, I saw this was happening. I can imagine this is pain. Let me pray for you right now.
Yeah.
So very, very, very intentional with that. But what can someone do right now? We're getting ready to go. I don't know when this will air. It may be in 25. And if it is, you're late. But start thinking about how you can set aside some budget for this. At a baseline, if you're selling a high ticket product, 5,000, 10,000, 20, 50, 100, whatever, you could literally add a $200 flat, call it relationship marketing line item into your bid. You don't even have to add margin to it. And your customers will actually offset some of the expense investment of this type of program. You're not losing a job over $200. If you are, you need some sales training. We can help you with that too. But the point is, you got to start preparing. Okay. Here's what, when I've talked about this, one of the things people say, hey, Clifton, I didn't even reach out to you because I thought that there's no way that my small business could afford this.
Yeah.
Depending on the program, we're talking about between $200 and $550 per customer to get touched 4 to 6 to 9 times over the course of 12 months. So if you think about the investment, easy ROI calculation.
Yep.
And then you've got the ROR. And again, we talk about marrying those two.
That's huge. The other question I would have is, you mentioned, a deck builder, an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
Give people a range of the different businesses you've worked with and that this could work with. And in my mind, I'm thinking anybody, because we're all in the relationship business. But if you could just run people through so that it's there for them. Absolutely.
Yeah. So anybody that values relationships and wants to serve, that's small business, but that's very nebulous, right? So yeah, to your point, home builders, general contractors, kitchen and bath remodelers, flooring contractors, painters, deck builders, engineers, siding contractors, roofing contractors. So a lot of those home service type businesses, again, we can get back in front of people. They buy over and over. So those are probably the ones that we service the most of.
Cool. What about residential? Cool. What about like lower cost, lower ticket ones? Let's say junk removal or plumbing or some of those.
Absolutely. So what we could do something like that is, we have lower tier programs. Let's say that, they just want to maybe put them into an email nurture sequence after they do a job, and maybe send them a couple of thank you cards or a couple of handwritten cards. So we could do something like that. We got programs as low as like $50.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's huge. And the lifetime value, I mean, I know junk removal plumbing is another niche that we're really diving into. Lifetime value of a good client is like $5,000. So why wouldn't you spend $50 a year on them?
Exactly. I'll share with this one little, this is a really cool success story as well. The same guy I was telling you about that came to us and said he just spent a couple grand on new merch.
Yeah.
He was, a little bit gun shy. Like, I can't invest this. He owns a landscaping company, but he was launching Christmas lights.
Mm.
So we just put him on a 5-touch program, handwritten cards. The first one was just expressing appreciation and gratitude. The second one, we actually launched and reminded them or made them aware that now we're doing Christmas lights. We put a QR code on it. Dude, and he was booking Christmas lights jobs.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, we can use these to upsell, cross-sell, launch new products. There's a lot of different ways that we can do some of this.
Clifton, this has been fun. This has been, definitely, I was excited to dive in because there was some stuff that I had questions about having watched you. And then we got that fun teachable moment of mine where my brain completely froze, and I was like, "This is incredible." And then we got the fax machine. Don't forget that one, guys.
Yeah.
But this was fun, Clifton. I appreciate your time. Stick around for a second after, and we'll wrap up. But guys, marketing doesn't need to have rules. In fact, if you're following the rules, maybe you should take a peek at your plan and look at, okay, how can I go off script here? How can I be different, be memorable, keep that attention coming to my business for the right reasons? And Clifton has laid out a masterclass on how that can happen. So appreciate you, man.
Thank you, brother. Have a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, and we will see you guys next time.